At my second wedding anniversary, I announced my pregnancy. Minutes later, I collapsed. My jealous sister had poisoned my drink. My husband rushed me to the hospital, but nothing could prepare us for the doctor's shocking revelation. What he said changed everything. I never thought I'd be the kind of woman with a story like this. You hear about jealousy and betrayal in books, in dramas on TV, but never think it'll find a home in your own life. I'm Elena Martinez, 32 years old, living in Austin, Texas. I'm an architect by profession, precise, detail-oriented, and maybe a little too trusting. I married Jason Walker, a kind-hearted, brilliant cybersecurity consultant, 3 years ago after a whirlwind romance. We met during a client project, and what began with coffee turned into long nights and endless laughter. Our connection was effortless. 2 years into our marriage, Jason and I were in a really good place. We had finally finished building our dream home in South Austin, and our work lives were stable. We decided to host a small celebration for our second wedding anniversary. Nothing huge, just a charming garden party at this little venue Jason had found with ivy-covered walls and string lights that twinkled just right when the sun went down. Friends, family, laughter, exactly the kind of night I'd imagined for us. We had one more reason to celebrate, something we hadn't told anyone yet. I was pregnant. Just a few weeks in, but we'd waited for this moment, and it finally came. Jason and I decided to announce it at the anniversary party. A fresh beginning. That night, I remember standing beside Jason under the warm glow of fairy lights, our hands intertwined. We gave a short speech thanking everyone, and then Jason looked at me and gave me a little nod. I smiled and said, "We also have some exciting news. We're expecting a baby." Gasps, cheers, claps, it was perfect. My mother wiped tears from her eyes, and my father hugged Jason. Everyone came rushing toward us to congratulate us, and for a moment, I felt like the luckiest woman in the world. Everyone except my younger sister, Chloe. Chloe Martinez. She's 28, technically unemployed, but she dabbled in all kinds of things. A yoga course she never finished. An Etsy business that lasted 2 months. She lives with our parents and has always been unstable. Emotional outbursts, unpredictable mood swings, and a pattern of manipulating those around her to get what she wants. But to my parents, she's just fragile. They've coddled her all her life, saying she just needs time and love to be okay. I used to believe it too. I tried so hard to be the big sister she needed, inviting her to events, helping her financially, standing up for her when others doubted her. But Chloe always seemed to carry something sharp in her smile when she looked at me. Like she hated the fact that I had structure, a husband, a career. She never said it outright, but she didn't need to. Her silence in happy moments spoke louder than any insult. And that night, when I announced my pregnancy, she just froze. I saw her from the stage, standing at the back, her arms stiff at her sides, her face blank. No claps, no smile, no emotion, just a stiff, piercing stare. Then, without saying a word, she turned and walked toward the catering tent. At the time, I brushed it off. Maybe she was overwhelmed. She'd been through a breakup recently again. Maybe she needed space. What I didn't know was that while we were being showered in congratulations, Chloe was slipping a folded $500 bill into the hands of one of the part-time waiters and whispering something in his ear. I didn't see it. No one did. The evening rolled on. Music played, guests drank and danced, and I remember laughing with Jason near the dessert table when a waiter approached me with a fancy cocktail glass in hand. He smiled politely and said, "This is from your sister. She wanted to personally toast to your happiness." For a second, I was surprised but touched. Maybe Chloe had just needed a moment. I took the glass, raised it slightly, and took a sip. That's when everything began to change. I remember a strange bitterness in my mouth, the kind that made your lips tingle. Then a burning sensation crawled down my throat. The world blurred, the lights dimmed, and my knees gave way. I couldn't breathe. I remember Jason's voice yelling my name, guests gasping, a glass shattering as it hit the ground. I collapsed. The next moments are flashes in my memory. Jason lifting me up. Someone screaming. Sirens. The cold hospital lights.
Tubes. Masks.
A nurse's calm voice. The sharp sting of fear in Jason's eyes. I woke up in the hospital bed, dazed and weak, with Jason sitting beside me, holding my hand tightly. His eyes were red. He leaned in, his voice shaking. You're okay. You and the baby, you're okay. But, Elena, the doctors said you were poisoned.
Poisoned.
I blinked, confused. What do you mean? They tested your blood. Traces of a toxic substance. Low dosage, but enough to make you collapse. If we hadn't rushed in time, his voice cracked. I lay there frozen. Who would want to poison me? At our own anniversary party? Jason was already suspicious. He said it didn't feel like an accident. I could see it in his face. Something had broken inside him the moment he saw me drop to the ground. And I agreed with him. That drink, the one that was from Chloe, was it really? Over the next few days, Jason and I started connecting the pieces. We didn't tell anyone, not even my parents. We wanted to be sure. Jason got in touch with the venue and asked for access to their outdoor camera footage. They had basic security coverage, just enough to catch people moving around the food and staff area. It didn't take long. In one of the clips, clear as day, we saw Chloe talking to a young waiter behind the tent, handing him something. The waiter looked hesitant, but eventually nodded. Then we saw him prepare a drink at the bar cart, check his phone, likely reading instructions, and then walk over to me. My hands were trembling. Jason looked like he was going to punch through the wall. We tracked the waiter down using the staff contact list from the venue. He was just 19, doing the job to pay for community college. When Jason confronted him, he broke down. He admitted everything. Chloe had told him it was a harmless prank, that I was the kind of sister who needed to be taught a lesson. She'd given him a small vial and told him to add just a few drops. Said it was herbal. Said it would make me a little dizzy, that it'd be funny. He didn't know she meant to hurt me. Jason recorded the entire confession. And that's when it truly hit me. My own sister tried to kill me. I sat in silence that night, staring at the wall of our bedroom. My baby was safe. I was safe. But something inside me had shattered permanently. Jason turned to me, his voice low and steady. We're going to the police. I don't care what your parents say. She tried to take you away from me. And all I could say was, okay. But what I felt inside wasn't just fear. It was something else. It was rage. The next morning, I woke up with a fire inside me. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I didn't even feel weak anymore. Something had clicked. I wasn't just the older sister trying to protect Chloe. I wasn't just a pregnant woman trying to stay calm. I was a woman who had nearly died because of someone I loved. And now I wanted the truth out. I wanted justice. Jason had already transferred the video from the venue's security system onto a flash drive. The confession from the waiter was also saved. Every word, every pause, every nervous apology. We knew it would be hard, but we were ready. Jason drove us to the police station that afternoon. I remember sitting in the passenger seat, looking out the window, watching the familiar streets of Austin pass by. My city, my home, suddenly didn't feel as safe anymore. At the station, we were taken into a small office. I told the officer everything, from the drink, to the collapse, to what we found on the footage, and finally, the boy's confession. Jason played both recordings. The officer didn't say much at first, just scribbled in his notebook and kept nodding. Then he leaned back and said, "We're going to take this seriously. Attempted poisoning, especially in a public event with potential danger to others, is a criminal offense. We'll need to question your sister." Just hearing those words, criminal offense, made it all feel real. This wasn't just drama. This was a crime. Jason and I didn't go home after that. We drove straight to my parents' house. I knew it would be hard, but they had to know. Chloe still lived there. I wasn't sure if she had any idea what we had discovered. Maybe she thought she'd gotten away with it. Maybe she was sitting in her room planning her next act, like none of this had happened. When we arrived, my mom answered the door. Her smile faded the second she saw our faces. "What's wrong? Elena, are you okay?" "The baby." I need to speak to both of you. Alone. My father came in from the kitchen, confused, but quiet. Jason and I sat across from them at the dining table. I took a deep breath. We know what Chloe did at the anniversary party. Their faces didn't move at first. Then my mom's lips parted. What do you mean? She tried to poison me. We have the footage. We have a confession from the waiter. She paid him to spike my drink. My father blinked, and my mother's eyes welled up instantly. No, she whispered. She wouldn't do that. She couldn't. Jason leaned forward. We're not here for debate. We just came to tell you before the police arrive. My mother burst into tears, grabbing my hand. She's sick, Elena. You know that. She's always struggled. Maybe she wasn't thinking clearly. Maybe she didn't mean. I pulled my hand away. She could have killed me. And the baby. Your grandchild.
Do you understand that?
My dad finally spoke, his voice quiet and strained. Are you sure? Maybe someone put her up to it. Jason stood up. You want to see the video? Her giving money to the waiter? Him admitting she handed him poison? How much more do you need? Just then, we heard footsteps on the stairs.
Chloe.
She appeared in the hallway, in her usual hoodie and leggings, hair tied up. She looked at us and smirked like it was just another awkward family moment. Hey, didn't expect to see you both. Chloe, I said, standing up. Do you have anything you want to tell me? She tilted her head. Not really. Why? I stared at her. You know why. She shrugged, looking at my mom. What did you tell them now? Before my mother could speak, Jason cut in. Save it. The police are coming. We have everything. You'll need a lawyer. Her face twitched. Just for a second. Then her eyes narrowed. You wouldn't do that. You're my sister. I stepped closer to her. You tried to kill me. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Because I'm pregnant? Because I'm happy. I said, my voice rising. What did I ever do to deserve this, Chloe? I loved you. I protected you. She laughed, bitter, hollow. You took everything. You always had everything. You walked into the room and people looked at you. They chose you. And now you get to have a perfect little family too? Why should you get it all? My mother gasped, whispering, Chloe. But Chloe wasn't done. I didn't mean to hurt you. I just wanted you to slow down.
Just for once.
I wanted you to feel like I do, every day, forgotten. I looked at her, stunned. So you tried to end my life? Chloe didn't answer. She just looked away. That evening, she was arrested. Watching her being led out of the house in handcuffs, I felt cold. My parents stood behind me, my mother sobbing into my father's shoulder. They didn't try to stop the officers. Maybe even they saw that it had gone too far. At home, Jason and I sat in silence. The baby kicked inside me, and I placed my hand over my stomach, grounding myself in reality. I'm so sorry, I whispered. Jason shook his head. You don't have to be sorry. She made her choice. But she was my sister, I said. She still is, Jason replied softly. But that doesn't mean she gets to hurt you and walk away. In the days that followed, things moved fast. The case was being processed. Chloe had confessed. My parents visited once, begging me to reconsider, to pull back the charges. She's your blood, Elena, my mother pleaded. She's going to prison. Please don't let her rot there. I looked at her and said, she already made her choice, Mom. I'm just making mine. I never felt more heartbroken and more certain at the same time. But this wasn't over yet. The trial was just beginning. The trial began a few weeks later. Jason and I had to go back and forth to the courthouse in downtown Austin. Every time I stepped into that cold courtroom, it felt like a wound reopening. Chloe was always seated at the defense table, wearing those same gray clothes issued by the jail. She looked thinner, pale, and tired, but her eyes still carried that sharpness, the same look I remembered from the night of our anniversary. I didn't want to testify, but I had to. I was the victim. I was the one who drank the poison. I was the one who nearly died. When I sat in the witness chair, my hands trembled, but I kept my voice steady. I told the court exactly what happened, every detail, including Chloe's attempt to cover it up, the waiter's confession, and the footage from the venue. The judge listened intently. Chloe didn't even look at me while I spoke. She kept her eyes down, as if the floor held all the answers she didn't want to face. Jason testified, too. He explained how he rushed me to the hospital, how close we came to losing both me and the baby, and how we pieced the evidence together. The prosecutor presented everything. The video, the text messages between Chloe and the waiter, the toxicology report, and even Chloe's conversation at my parents' house where she admitted, in front of all of us, that she just wanted me to feel what she felt. Chloe's defense attorney tried to play the mental health angle. He painted her as a troubled young woman who had suffered silently for years, neglected emotionally, and driven by hormones and depression. He even brought my mother to the stand. She cried and spoke about Chloe's childhood, how fragile she was, and begged the judge for leniency. I sat in my seat, frozen, as my own mother tried to defend the same woman who had tried to poison her pregnant daughter. But the judge saw through it all. He made it clear that while mental illness should be treated with compassion, it could not excuse a deliberate act of violence. Chloe had planned this. She had bought the poison, paid someone to deliver it, and had done so in a public setting where others could have been hurt. When the final day of the trial arrived, I could barely breathe. The courtroom was quiet as the judge read the verdict, guilty on all counts. Attempted murder, conspiracy to commit harm, and endangering the public. Chloe stood motionless as the judge announced her sentence, 12 years in prison with no parole for at least 7. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just exhaled. After court was dismissed, Chloe was escorted away. For the first time in weeks, she looked at me. Her eyes met mine across the room. There was no apology in them. No regret. Just that same bitterness, that same emptiness I had grown up watching build and twist inside her. And then she was gone. Jason held my hand tightly as we walked out of the courthouse. The sun was bright that day, strangely warm for winter. I remember thinking how the world outside didn't care what just happened inside that building. People walked past, laughed, sipped coffee, while I had just watched my sister be taken away in chains. Life moved on as it always does. I gave birth to our son a few months later, a beautiful, healthy boy with Jason's calm eyes and my thick hair. We named him Leo. Holding him in my arms made everything feel worth it. All the pain, all the fear, it led to this moment. Jason became the most incredible father, and together we created the safe, loving home I always wished for as a child. But the scars were still there. Emotional ones. I had nightmares for weeks. I kept checking my food and drinks without even realizing. Therapy helped. My therapist told me that trauma sometimes hides in the background, waiting for quiet moments to strike. But with time and with love, it could fade. My relationship with my parents changed forever. They visit sometimes, especially to see Leo. But there's distance. A quiet, heavy kind. My mother still believes Chloe didn't mean it. She once said, "She just broke a little, Elena. You were always stronger."
I didn't respond.
Some things don't deserve answers. I don't hate Chloe. I wish I could. Hatred would make this easier, simpler. But I can't forget the times we were little girls, playing in the backyard, giggling at stupid jokes. The truth is, I mourn her. I mourn the sister she could have been.
But I also choose myself now.
I choose Jason. I choose Leo. I choose peace. And I will never allow anyone to take that from me again. A year passed, and with it came a sense of calm I hadn't felt in a long time. Our home in Austin, once filled with quiet tension, now buzzed with life. Leo had started walking, babbling words, and his laughter echoed through every corner of the house. Jason and I took turns watching him while working, and even though we were both busy, we were happy.
Safe. Whole.
But that part of my life, what happened with Chloe, never fully left me. It lingered like a closed door at the end of a hallway, one I didn't open but always knew was there. Sometimes, in the stillness of the night, when Leo was asleep and Jason was reading in bed beside me, I'd think about that drink, about the burning in my throat,
The fear.
Her face. I couldn't shake the image of her watching us celebrate, carrying a storm behind her quiet stare. We didn't hear much from Chloe after the trial. I refused to visit her in prison, and Jason supported me. My parents visited her a few times, though less than I expected. Maybe even they started seeing her clearly for the first time. There was no more blaming hormones or sadness. The truth had been laid bare. One afternoon, about 8 months after her sentencing, we got a letter in the mail. It had no return address, but I recognized the handwriting instantly.
Chloe.
I didn't open it right away. I held it in my hands for hours, staring at the envelope like it was a ticking bomb. Jason found me sitting on the porch swing holding it. "You don't have to read it," he said gently. "I know," I whispered, "but I think I need to." Inside was a short note, written in her usual looping script. She started by saying she didn't expect forgiveness, that prison was worse than she imagined, that every night she lay awake thinking about Leo and wondering if he'd ever know she existed. She said she had time to reflect, to understand what she'd done, and that she didn't even recognize the person she had become. She called herself broken.
Lost. Sick.
And then, the line that stuck with me the most. "I always hated that you got everything, Elena, but I never realized I hated myself even more for not trying to earn anything." I folded the letter and put it away. I didn't write back. Months turned into another year. Life moved forward. Leo's second birthday came around, and we celebrated with a small group of friends and a cake shaped like a train. He clapped his hands and squealed when everyone sang. Jason recorded every second. I watched from the side, hand on my heart, silently grateful for the life we had built, despite everything. We hadn't told Leo the full story, of course. He was too young. But Jason and I promised each other that one day, when he was old enough, we would. He deserved to know why some people weren't in his life. Why truth and trust mattered more than titles like family. We wouldn't fill him with hate or bitterness. But we'd teach him to see clearly, to listen carefully, and to protect his peace the way we had learned to protect ours. One morning not long ago, I received a call from the prison. Chloe had requested a video call. I almost said no, but something made me pause. I talked to Jason about it. "I don't need closure," I told him. "Then don't do it for closure," he replied. "Do it for control. You get to choose how this ends." So I agreed. The call was scheduled for the next day. Jason sat beside me, out of the camera's view. When Chloe's face appeared on screen, I was stunned at how different she looked. Thinner, older, tired. Her eyes no longer had that fire. Just a dull flicker. She greeted me softly, with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "I didn't think you'd answer," she said. "I wasn't sure I would," I replied. There was a long pause before she spoke again. "I want you to know that I'm trying to be better. I've been going to therapy in here, talking about things I never said out loud. I was angry for so long. I didn't know how to be anything else." "I know," I said. She hesitated. "I don't expect anything from you. I just needed to say it out loud." I nodded. "Thank you for saying it." The call ended a few minutes later.
I didn't cry.
I didn't feel sad. If anything, I felt light, like I had carried a heavy bag for years and finally set it down. Now, as I sit here telling this story, my story, I'm not doing it for sympathy or attention. I'm doing it for every person who's ever felt trapped by loyalty to someone who didn't deserve it. Blood doesn't give anyone the right to break you. And forgiveness, if it comes, should be earned, not expected. Chloe may always be a part of my past, but she no longer gets to control my present. I live for my son, for my husband, for the quiet mornings and loud birthday parties, for every breath I take without fear. I survived. And I didn't just walk away, I rebuilt. And that, more than anything, is the ending she never saw coming.